My overrated video got a lot more engagement than I thought it would, and I am going to make a video responding more directly to some of the alleged points that were made in the comments. But I just want to get a few things out of the way first. One is about Joel being the villain of The Last of Us, which I'll do in a separate video. The other is related to AI, which I'll do here. But the first is a particular kind of comment from Overrated, a particular variant of comment, which I'll call the Lebowski Strain. So, going forward, this YouTube channel will be known as Clint's Grievances. If I find something to be annoying, like certain trends in gaming, or people saying stupid shit in my comments, then I'll make a video about it, giving my opinions. And those opinions will always and forever be subjective, because that's how opinions work. Can an opinion ever be objective? I guess it depends on the topic. There are some topics which are just purely subjective from start to finish. And then there are other topics from which you can gain or derive facts. And you could base your opinion on those facts, which would allow you to claim that your opinion is correct or closer to correct than someone else's. But still, in this case, it would be your opinion, and that opinion would be based on your interpretation of those facts. And your interpretation could be incorrect. You could be misinterpreting those facts. In this video, I gave my appraisal of some video games. These appraisals are my subjective opinions, which is something that I knew long before you came to my comment section. You disagree with me. You think these games are good, and you think your opinion is closer to correct than mine. But this isn't math. This isn't science. This is video games. One of those purely subjective topics from which you can derive no facts. You might say you can point to review scores or sales, but that would just be other people's subjective opinions. This idea that I state my opinions with such confidence, as though they were objectively true. If I said to you, you know, people shouldn't go around fucking each other with knives, you gonna shit on my confidence? Why not? Because that seems obvious to you? Well, it's not. It's an opinion that is just as subjective as any other opinion. Well, you know, people can't be happy and society can't flourish if people live in constant fear of what others might do to them. I agree. But what human happiness and societal flourishing looks like is also subjective. The idea that those things are even good is subjective. Morality is subjective. Beauty is subjective. Everything that happens in your brain is subjective. At the beginning of my video, I said, I don't understand why you like what you like. That is not the same as telling you that you shouldn't like what you like. I said there should be enough room in this gaming space for all of us to get what we want, and that as long as what you like doesn't override and replace what I like, we have no problem. At no point in my video did I tell you that you had to change your mind, or that you had to agree with me, or that you had to stop liking what you like. If you want me to endlessly caveat everything I say for fear of offending your delicate sensibilities, you've come to the wrong YouTube channel. Telling a person who's just given you their opinion that it's just their opinion is quite possibly the dumbest response that anyone could ever have to anything that anyone else ever says ever. You've said nothing. You've literally said nothing about whether or not my opinion is correct. I understand that's what you think you've done, but no. You have to actually articulate your disagreement, else you've wasted everybody's time. And even then, it would still just be your opinion. Let me recap and clarify what this guy's talking about in the third part of his comment. There are creative professionals who believe that there's a reservoir of untapped creative genius out there in the fandom. They think if only we can get these creative tools into the hands of the general public, we'll be flooded with creative, innovative, ingenious, brand new stuff. And they put out something like PlayStation's Dreams, or freemium apps, or free and open source apps. Now, I believe that the average person is painfully uncreative and is completely incapable of producing a movie, book, or game worth watching, playing, or reading. And that the vast majority of the stuff we get from the general public using these tools are just fan remakes of existing video games or half-baked adaptations of non-video game media. And before you go off, I count myself among the uncreative average. This guy disagrees with me and claims that we got more from Dreams than just Mario levels. Well, I always assumed we got Zelda levels too, but the only thing of note that ever came out of Dreams was an Avatar game, which would have been better served in Unreal Engine, and the guy making it would have been even better served putting all of his energy into an original IP. While I do appreciate the technical proficiency required in using Unreal to remake Mario 64 or Ocarina of Time, I don't think it's all that creative to just remake games, especially if you're downloading models and animations from online sources instead of making them yourself. To rebut me, this guy mentions 6 games, 4 of which are just fan remakes. So I say it's a bad thing that the vast majority of the time you give the public creative tools, all you get is fan remakes. And then this guy says, what do you mean? Look at these fan remakes. I don't know if the originals are any good because I've never played them and I never will. And I don't know if these remakes bring anything new to the table or if they're just very technically proficient, paint-by-numbers recreations of other people's games. But if you do know how to use apps like these, why not try to create something new? If I knew how to use Unreal Engine, I would absolutely try to make something new, and it would probably end up being trash, but at least it would be a real attempt at creating something. I like the fact that these kinds of apps are available. I myself use Krita and Blender from time to time. I appreciate the availability of open source apps and freemium apps, but the vast majority of the users of these apps will only ever reach the level of hobbyist. And that's perfectly respectable. Even a hobbyist level of technical proficiency in the use of any of these apps is absolutely respectable, unlike the machine roulette of AI generators. I don't even know what this guy's talking about. I just don't. Is he talking about torrents? Torrents help the masses get free shit, but that doesn't hurt the corporations as much as it hurts the artists. You can see Left Eye's video on how TLC went broke to learn about how the corporations shift their losses onto the artists. And I don't see how AI generation of art is some great advancement that helps the masses. In fact, this helps the corporations more than it helps anyone else because now they don't have to pay artists anymore. This guy here is a fucking lunatic. All his comments are batshit crazy insane, and I already responded to one of them. He responded to this other guy with such a complete non sequitur. I thought he was being sarcastic. Seems like this guy just hates rich people or people who have a talent or a skill that they can exploit to make money. Lunatic wrote this comment during mid-2023 when there were writers and actor strikes going on in Hollywood. This guy doesn't seem to understand how TV works. Companies pay networks money to put commercials in TV shows. The more successful the show, the more money the network can demand from the companies. It is from this money actors, writers, and other creative types are paid. If the show is successful enough, it goes into syndication and airs multiple times throughout the week, usually on multiple networks. As long as a show continues to air in syndication, it will make money for the network that owns it. And now with streaming, these shows make even more money for these networks. And the idea that these networks should be sharing that money with the people who actually made the shows is the very reason these strikes happened in the first place. The idea that the actors and writers that worked on these shows, they already did that work decades ago. They've already been paid for that work, and they shouldn't still get paid for work that they did so long ago. That argument doesn't take into consideration the fact that these shows are still making money for people at the networks who did no work in the making of these shows in the first place. If I did something 30, 40, 50 years ago that still makes somebody, somewhere, some money, they better be sharing that money with me. I do not believe I am better than most people, but I know I'm better than you. I mentioned Shadiversity in this video. I also mentioned how I got blocked by someone else for asking for a process video. Well, Shad put out a video showing his process. It was very much like what this guy describes in the first part of his comment, and it was every bit as pathetic as I thought it would be. At some point very early on in his process, the AI spits out a full and complete image for him. This is his starting point, a full and complete image. He makes minor revisions and then has the AI spit out another full and complete image. This is not a true creative process. This is image generation roulette. Just keep spinning the wheel until the AI spits out something you approve of. Shad goes on and on about how he's making artistic choices in this video and how you can't see the problems here, but I can, because I'm an artist and you're not. At some point, he claims that his keen artistic eye and knowledge of proportion has spotted a flaw. Her shoulders are too wide. So he fixes it with some very basic Photoshop editing. He was able to spot this flaw, but wasn't able to spot the size of her gigantic head. I showed this image to my brother, who, as far as I know, has not even attempted to draw anything in about 30 years, and he was able to spot within 30 seconds the other glaring flaw of this image. It has two suns. His real art, what he's really capable of, is displayed at the beginning of the video. And it's bad. It's very, very bad. And maybe he was very young when he drew this stuff, but it's very, very bad. And that's why he uses AI, because he didn't commit himself to practicing to get as good as, say, his brother.
My artistry is actually at a professional level.
And we'll give him like...
Art easily is on 2 points. I'm at a professional standard, and you know that.
Absolutely, you're a skilled artist. That's good.
It's a point of reference.
I understand that AI image generation tools are coming to Photoshop in the near future, but there have always been people who believed that Photoshop and other digital art programs did all the work for the user. You would hope that once these people see Photoshop in action, reality itself would force them to change their minds. But no, there are still people who believe that nonsense. People who try to distinguish traditional art from digital art as though they were completely separate things. This guy seems to think that drawing on a tablet is less like drawing on paper than it is like using AI art, which is an opinion I dismantled very quickly. If you believe the person in these two videos is not doing the same thing in both, then you are completely beyond reason. The only way this opinion makes sense is if you believe speed painting videos are actually being done in real time. These programs have tools that make certain aspects of drawing and painting less tedious, but none of these tools resemble image generation from scratch. I consider myself to be a bad artist. I'm fairly good at replicating what's right in front of me, like this girl's jacket or this drawing of my mother, but drawing off the top of the dome, not so much. And I didn't suddenly start making masterpieces when I started using digital painting programs. There may be some aspects of grammar that you have to know when typing a prompt into an AI, as opposed to just explaining what kind of image you want to a person. And you can call that a skill if you want to, but I believe you're being very loose with that word. At the end of the day, these prompts are still just explanations of what kind of art you want a thing that is not you to produce. Going on to then use very basic beginner level editing knowledge to edit this image and then feed that edited AI generated image back into the AI to regenerate again cannot be called artistic talent or skill, no matter what the resulting image looks like. By the way, I don't have a problem with these programs merely existing. I have a problem with the way they're used. If you're putting real artists' names in your prompts, trying to create art in their style, then you're doing something on a spectrum between forgery and plagiarism. If you post this stuff online, bragging about how great you are, especially if you're monetizing this shit, well then, you're just a fucking scumbag. Believe it or not, I myself might start using these programs just for fun in the privacy of my own bedroom. Right now, somebody out there watching this, probably Lunatic, is out there typing about how much of a hypocrite I am. But here's the reason why I'm not. I will never post any generated art online. You will never see any of the stuff I generate with AI art programs. As long as you're not ripping anybody off, posting your stuff online and making grandiose claims about yourself, or monetizing this shit, I have no problem with you using AI art programs. I'm probably going to get accused of being an elitist snob for this next part, so let me start by saying this. Most of the jobs I've had in my life have been some form of manual or low-skilled labor job. The job I have right now requires less than 10% of my brain power to do, and I'm half asleep most of the time I'm there. My job is easily replaced by automation, and I've already seen management take steps to make that happen. I will probably lose my job within the next 5 years. I come from working class people. I am working class. My mother was a lunch lady. My father was a baker for a supermarket chain. Before that, he did die casting, which is hot-ass factory work. One of my dad's friends lost his fingers at that job. My father drove him to the hospital. My uncle nearly died on a job. He fell through a roof, and he was in a coma for a little bit. So, that's where I come from. One of the responses real artists get to their complaints about AI is that so many other kinds of jobs have already been replaced by automation. This is just a continuation of that trend. I think there's a difference between automation or AI replacing manual labor jobs versus jobs that result from some kind of intellectual pursuit. I'm not saying you can't have pride in your manual labor or low-skill labor job, or even your white-collar job pushing a pencil. What I'm saying is that this type of work is valued for different reasons than art. You might put your blood, sweat, and tears into a physically demanding job that feeds your family, or pull an all-nighter at the office, and that's great. But that job isn't you. It doesn't come from you. The results of that kind of work don't come from you in the same way that a piece of art does. Art comes from your balls. It comes from deep inside of you and is valued for different reasons and in a different way than other kinds of work. And when I say art is valued, I mean art itself. Nobody gives a fuck about artists. Nobody values them until they're dead, which is probably why so many people feel comfortable using AI. You work your entire life to build a skill and develop a talent, and if that talent is basketball, you could get drafted and become a multimillionaire. People value the playing of basketball, the actual doing of it. But with art, people only respect the result. They don't respect the artist themselves. Being a professional NBA player is a small club. There's not that many of them compared to the overall population. There are probably even less pro comic artists. Both are very difficult, both require skill and commitment to achieve, yet people will call themselves artists for generating an image, but nobody calls themselves a champion for playing NBA 2K. Maybe it's because we all draw as children, but artistic talent is not treated the same as other talents. If someone finds out you do martial arts or gymnastics, they might ask you to do a kick or a flip, and then they're happy. Someone finds out you can sing, They might ask you to sing something for them, but they're not going to ask you to make an entire album. When people find out you can draw, they will run right up on you. Hello, friend. Someone told me you can draw. I need you to spend the next 40 hours of your life crafting me a masterpiece. They don't understand the demands they're making of your time. I used to get people in high school, friends of mine, asking me, draw me a cover of my make-believe rap album. Okay, do you want it to look good? Because for it to look good, that's going to take me about 20 hours. Are you going to pay me for that 20 hours, fellow teenager? But why is art valued, and why should artists be valued? Art is valued for being aesthetically pleasing, for being pretty, which is subjective. But it should also be valued for being made by a talented person with artistic intent. With AI, you might get a pretty image, and the person generating it might have some artistic intent, but they didn't make it, the AI did. It's difficult to make art that's good. It requires years of practice and study. This is part of the reason why art is impressive. AI art might be impressive as a feat of programming, but not as art. Art is done by a person who is solving problems and making choices. Every line, every brushstroke is intentional, is a choice. And you can never get that level of intentionality or choice making with AI art. I do not go to museums, and I'm not a fan of Jackson Pollock or Andy Warhol or Jean-Paul Basquiat, and I think it takes a high level of assholery to pretend these people are any good. I remember seeing a story on the news about a time a museum patron left a coffee cup on the floor and people started gathering around it, taking pictures like it was a piece of art. This is the kind of silliness that Shad is touching on when he mentions the banana nailed to the wall. This is one of the few things I actually agree with him on. There's a kind of pretentious elitist snobbery among the critics and patrons in the world of fine arts, and this snobbery can feel like a barrier to entry for regular people. The phrase democratization of art is all about trying to remove that perceived barrier to allow more people of various backgrounds to feel welcome to participate as fans, patrons, and artists. When AI prompters use the phrase democratization of art, they seem to mean that everyone should be allowed to make art that is good. This is very strange to me because this has always already been the case. Everyone has already had the option to make art that is good by becoming a good artist. But to become a good artist, you have to take the necessary steps. What are those steps? Practice, training, study. This option, this choice, has always been available to you. No one has ever forbidden you from picking up a pencil and teaching yourself how to draw. If you can see this video, you can find endless resources online to learn from. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of hours of free lessons and tutorials right here on YouTube, put here by the same gatekeeping elitists whose income will be hurt by AI. But to hell with them, according to this absolute lunatic. You don't really want to democratize art. You want to do the equality versus equity meme. You want to make this asshole right when he talks about equality versus equity. You want results with no work. You want muscles with no exercise. And then you want us to respect you somehow. You didn't actually beat Mike Tyson when you beat Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, and you didn't actually make art when you generated it with AI. The way I see it, if the Matrix existed and you could upload skills directly into people's brains, then you'd have the ghost of an argument. I know color theory. It would still be a shortcut, but at least it would be you making the art. As it stands now, the art is being made by an entity separate from and outside of yourself. And as long as that is the case, you will never be an artist. But I already know this is a losing struggle. AI art is only going to get better, and the more it does, the less actual artists there'll be. 50 years from now, there won't be any artists, and probably no actors or musicians either. Only prompters. You won't be able to trust a single thing you see on a screen. Photo, real video, and picture will be generated to smear politicians in any way their opponents want. AI voice generation will put slanderous words in anyone's mouth. And any woman with any kind of public profile, or even just the hottest girl in school, will go online to find footage of herself getting BBC'd from every angle. It's gonna be a fucking hellscape. But until then, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.